Hello everyone, welcome to another WatchGuard tips and tricks video. I'm Ryan Poutre, the sales engineer for the North Central and the Wi-Fi specialist for WatchGuard. Today we're going to take a look at how simple it is to use the WatchGuard APs to provide a security overlay to a third-party wireless system, giving you the ability to gain more visibility and some threat management without having to completely replace the existing wireless network that is already deployed throughout your organization. The idea of this is to provide additional security against the 6 known Wi-Fi threats that are defined in the MIRCOM testing reports available on WatchGuard's website. Some of these, really the most malicious ones, are going to be like rogue access points or evil twins. One of my favorite ones to demonstrate is using a Wi-Fi pineapple to create an evil twin in an environment and pull users off of the local Wi-Fi, and then have the ability to monitor the traffic that they're doing over the wireless without them even knowing they're connected to a bad AP. So today, what we're going to take a look at is really how can we provide that additional security without ripping out what we have. You could have a large investment in a Meraki or Aruba or Ubiquiti or any third-party wireless network that it's just not time to replace that yet. So with WatchGuard, we can deploy what we call WIPS sensors, and the AP125 is our low-cost AP that works really well for something like this. Typically, we're looking at one WatchGuard AP running in WIPS sensor mode for every 3 to 4 access points in your environment. That obviously can change depending on the building, the walls, what the deployment looks like from an environmental standpoint. But 3 to 4 ratio to 1 WatchGuard is a pretty safe bet to kind of get started. When you go to set it up, it's pretty simple. There's a couple things you want to figure out before you get started. What SSIDs are you broadcasting and you want to protect? Get your switch configuration correct for those APs that are going in. The WatchGuards do need to have visibility to the networks we're going to protect. So if you want to protect a corporate Wi-Fi and a guest Wi-Fi and maybe a hidden point of sales network, we'll have to appropriately configure the interface on the switch that's providing that connection to the WatchGuard AP. But outside of that, on the WatchGuard side, the setup's pretty simple. We're going to start in Discover, and in Discover we can go to Monitor, WIPS. If you have a couple of these APs rolled out, you're going to get this visibility. You can figure this out prior to a deployment just by taking a look at your existing wireless solution and figure out what your SSID is that you want to protect and what brand of APs are broadcasting that SSID. In this demo, we're going to protect an Aruba RAP3 that's running here in my lab. It is broadcasting an SSID called Aruba SSID. And right now, with my deployment, it shows in here as a rogue access point. So if we come in and we look at my home lab, we're going to add an additional network for protection in here. If we look at my APs, go to Monitor WIPS, we can see that I have an AP125 running in WIPS sensor mode. This is going to be the access point that's used to protect these this Aruba network. In your case, if you were just doing an overlay, you wouldn't have a bunch of WatchGuards in here broadcasting. But we have a lot of flexibility in how we deploy our networks and what the individual APs can be doing. Our AP325 can provide connectivity and security out of the same radio, or an AP125 can just provide connectivity, or it can provide just security. So a lot of flexibility when it comes to how we deploy these and what we can provide as an additional security layer in your environment. If we take a look at the configuration, we're obviously going to start with the AP. This access point we're going to want to turn into a WIPS only sensor. In this case, I'm doing it as a group configuration. This gives us a lot of flexibility in where we can apply this configuration to. When we're configuring our SSIDs, we configure a lot at the folder level. But I wanted to be able to apply this dedicated WIPS sensor configuration in multiple folders. So my mobile lab or in my home folder. And that's where configuring things as a group comes in. So if we go to the system and we go to System Navigator here, we can go to our group setting, and I made a group called Dedicated WIPS Sensor. When we come to our configuration, we can go to configure our Wi-Fi now. And instead of clicking on our locations at a folder level like we would if we were going to deploy a wireless network, way down here at the bottom, there's actually our groups. And our group will show up here. When we're doing this as an overlay, we don't need to configure an SSID, we don't need to configure radius or anything like that, but we do need to come into our device settings and turn this access point into a dedicated WIPS sensor. We also need to apply a password to that. This password will be used if you need to SSH into the AP for troubleshooting or anything like that. The next thing to look at is the security. By default, we're going to monitor any VLANs that have a presence, an SSID configured on it. If we're doing an overlay, we want to be able to come in here and say, I want to monitor additional VLANs. And you want to check this box and add the VLAN IDs that we're going to protect that the Aruba AP is broadcasting. So in this case, we're going to protect the default VLAN as 0, VLAN 20, and VLAN 200. We want to make sure that the WIPS sensor is enabled in offline mode, which will allow the AP to continue protecting your network even if it loses connections to the cloud. And then the last thing to kind of take a look at is this channel settings. These are the wireless RF channels that we're going to monitor. These are all of the 2.4 and 5 gigahertz channels. And then we need to look at what channels we're going to defend. We need to make sure that these channels align with the available channels that you have set up in your wireless network that's providing the connectivity. We don't want one of those APs to start broadcasting in a channel that we're not monitoring or protecting because it defeats the purpose of doing an overlay. Once the AP's configured as a group configuration, we can now go back into monitoring. We can look at our access points. And we're going to go back to our folders, to my home network. And we're going to drop this down to WIPS. And we can see that this AP, we want to apply it to a group. So we want to do assign a group setting and select that dedicated WIPS sensor group configuration that we made. When we apply this, the AP logo will go away, and this active sensor logo will now be present for that. The operation mode should be set to sensor, and the group that is applied should show up here. Once those are all set up, make sure that this is up to date from a firmware perspective on the AP, and then we can go ahead and configure our WIPS policies. These policies are going to be what we configure for adding that non-WatchGuard wireless network in as a predefined network that we're going to have show up as authorized in our dashboard. So the profile name, I just made it Aruba. Make sure you put the authorized SSID in exactly like it is being broadcast. And then fill out the information that you can here. A lot of the times this stuff ends up at any. The real important one is going to be come down here to allow AP vendors and select the Aruba vendor ID. You can also go in there and hit start in typing and hit tab, and it will autofill with anything that's available for it. When you hit save, you'll be able to go back and you'll now see this Aruba AP broadcast or wireless policy, WIPS policy here, telling it that AP and that SSID that's broadcasting is an authorized network in your environment. If we go back to monitoring here and we go to WIPS, if you have everything configured correctly, give it a little bit of time. You should be able to come in and find your SSID, your client, and it will turn it into an authorized AP. Sometimes this takes a little while for it to reclassify, but if everything is done correctly, it will turn green within a few minutes of you making the change on your network. Those are the general steps you need to take to do a WIPS overlay with the WatchGuard product. It's a really good solution to provide that additional visibility and additional threat management without having to put a huge investment in ripping out your existing wireless network. If you have any questions about this, feel free to reach out to your WatchGuard reseller or the local WatchGuard sales team. We're always happy to talk to you more specifically about your unique project, and we can see if we'd be a good fit to add that additional layer of security to your wireless network that a lot of people just have never had before. Thank you guys for your time. I hope you caught something a little interesting. Let us know if you have any questions, and have a great day.